Got people coming in. Thank you everyone that's getting logged in and joining us today. We'll get started here in just a few minutes just to give people time to get logged in, make sure that they're ready to watch and listen. As folks are coming in, just want to remind you, if you have any questions for our panelists, these are current transfer students at PLU. They've been with us for a little while, even on their way out now as a graduate. But if you do have any questions for our panelists, please use that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can chat that in and we will make sure that our panelists get those questions. So we'll just give them a few more minutes for folks to get logged in. So what do you guys have planned for the summer now? Anything kind of exciting within, you know, quarantine limits? Jenna?
Well, like I mentioned yesterday when we had spoken, I do a lot of traveling in Asia, and I have a lot of friends in Japan and South Korea, and that's kind of my stomping grounds, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I've gone now the last 2 summers. This last summer I went for like a month and a half. It was just me and my friend, and we pretty much went like tip to tip, Japan and then South Korea, made lots of friends, lots of memories, adventured, that kind of stuff. And so I have one of my best friends, she's South Korean, and I met her doing study abroad 2 years ago, and we've just kept kind of the relationship going.
Cool.
The whole time, you know, I send her Christmas cards and different things like that. And so it's late August, and Korea and like East Asia is kind of starting to lighten up a little bit on the coronavirus stuff.
Yeah.
Because they've been in it a little bit longer. And so by late August, I mean, it could change, but we're thinking it'll be okay, because I had bought tickets to Jeju and Busan like before Corona. And so I'm sort of just sitting on those tickets until it gets
hoping that you get to use them.
Yes. Otherwise, maybe like a little bit later in the year, I'll take a vacation, because I think the Japanese government is actually going to be doing essentially like travel subsidiaries. Because like 7% of their GDP is travel, and so they've dropped 99% in their peak months right now.
Sure.
And so I don't know, if you want to go to Japan later on, you might get a little help doing it.
Yeah, might be the time to do it. Anybody else have anything exciting planned, or just something different, non-academic?
I have an internship in Seattle that I'm pretty excited about.
Awesome. Where's that at?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird story. I got an internship with a construction company for a project engineer. I like to be a project engineer intern through the PLU career fair. And then about a couple weeks before we were supposed to start, I got a call from them, and they just basically said, hey, because of the virus and everything that's going on, we're not going to offer the internship anymore. And so the same guy who was at the career fair and everything, like we had kind of built a relationship over the last like several months, and he just emailed a few other companies and put my resume out there, and he was able to help me find another one.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
within just a few days. Yeah, I was really panicking there for a little bit, but I got it figured out. But it's with BN Builders. It's kind of a smaller construction company, but I have the same position just as a engineer. So
great.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, congratulations.
That's cool too, especially with smaller companies, you know, when you're just starting out, because sometimes what that kind of means is you become sort of like big fish in a little pond, and you get to put your hands on more things and get a little bit more experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I was excited about it. Can hopefully have more of an impact.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I think we have anybody that had pre-registered joining us, so I think we can go ahead and get started. So for those of you who just recently checked in here, as a reminder, we have current PLU transfer students with us. And if you have any questions for them, please use that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit those, and we will definitely get those to our panelists. But to get started, I'm just going to have everybody just take a turn to introduce themselves. I will start with, I'm Amanda. I work for the Office of Admission. I'm the Assistant Director of Transfer Admission. And so we will get started with Jenna.
Hello, I'm Jenna. I just graduated from PLU. Woo woo! And I'm looking to spend a few years hopefully teaching as an assistant language teacher on the JET program, and then jumped from there.
Great. And what was your major, Jenna?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Communication with a strategic concentration and a minor in history.
Awesome. Thanks. Dylan, I'll have you go next.
Yeah, my name's Dylan Zuber. I'm going to be a senior this upcoming fall. I'm studying computer science, and I'm also getting my minor in math. And an interesting thing about me, I'm actually on the baseball team at PLU.
Very cool. Thanks. American?
Yes, I'm from Norway, and I'm going to be a junior this upcoming fall, and my major is business with a concentration in marketing and a minor in innovation studies. And so far I love PLU, and I'm really excited about the remaining years as well.
Great. And Pushpa?
Hi, my name's Pushpa Johnson. I'm a kinesiology major, and I have a minor in sports psychology. My plan is to go to PT school when I graduate this December.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, just a quick round of applause for Jenna for graduating. Congratulations. And
These are my graduation flowers.
You can smell them from here, right?
Yes, they're very fragrant.
Yeah. So let's step back a minute. Can I have you guys tell us a little bit about how you found out about PLU? What made you think, yeah, I should apply here? What made you choose PLU? We'll start with American.
Yeah, so I'm from Norway, and both my dad and my uncle studied in Boston and Washington, so they were like recommending the US for me. It's like, oh, you have to go there and study. I was like, yes, of course. And I've been here before, like traveling and vacation with my family, so I have like a very good impression. And one of my best friends from my high school, her dad and uncle, they studied at PLU for like 30 years ago, and her brother did pre-med, I guess like 3 or 4 years ago. So she was going to PLU as well, and then she recommended PLU for me, and she was like, oh, we gotta go together. And then I applied, and then I looked at PLU, and it looked great, both like academically and socially, and I just went with it.
Great. Very cool. How about you, Dylan?
Yeah, so I first heard about PLU, I think it was my sophomore year of high school, because my brother, he was a senior in high school at the time, and he was also a baseball player, and he was really wanting to play baseball in college, and PLU was really on his radar, and he ended up actually attending PLU for 4 years, and he graduated 2019, so a couple years, or last year, I guess. And so I was familiar with it then, and I knew that he made a lot of friends here, had a really good time. But I ended up going to a military academy for a little bit. And then from there, I actually transferred to Washington State University. And then I transferred there knowing that I was going to be there for a year. And then it was kind of up in the air where I'd transfer after that. And then so I went to the University of Washington actually for another year. And then I wanted to get into the computer science program. But if anyone is familiar with the University of Washington, it's the University of Washington computer science program is just top in the country, and it's very, very difficult to get into. So I kind of, after being there for a couple quarters, I kind of realized it wasn't likely that I was going to get in. And then so I had, for a while, I had PLU in the back of my mind because I knew that I could study computer science there. And so after my sophomore year last year, I ended up transferring to PLU. And then also the opportunity to play baseball again was like really exciting for me. So I took that opportunity.
Okay, great. How about you, Pushpa?
So my dad is actually a PLU alum. He came to the US from India like 45 years ago. So I guess I'm kind of starting a family tradition in a way, but I felt like PLU was a really good fit for me because I was looking for a small school, and I knew that PLU's kinesiology department had a really good reputation, and PT school is really competitive. So I wanted to make sure that I did my undergraduate degree with a really strong program to increase my chances for getting accepted into PT school. And bonus, it's like a 15-minute commute from my house. So that worked out really well.
That is always a bonus.
Yeah.
Anytime you can shorten that commute, even just a little bit.
Yeah, I can come home for lunch sometimes if I want to.
Wow, that is a good commute. How about you, Jenna? Tell us a little bit about your transfer story.
Yeah, so I'm PLU has a not a large but a pretty decent sized non-traditional transfer student population. So I'm a little bit older. I'm 26, and I decided to go back to school about 4 years ago. I actually started at Pierce College. For me, and now a lot of people are gonna be like, "Wait, private school? What do you mean you're financially conscious?" So I went to PLU because I wanted to limit any kind of debt, and so I actually graduated with my associates from Pierce College, debt free. I worked the whole time and got scholarships. And then PLU was not initially on my radar. I knew of it because I live in Lakewood. I live nearby, but it wasn't a place that I was like, yeah, that's where I'm gonna go. But what I did was I actually just sort of cast a net of public and private schools. And it was between actually Pepperdine and PLU. And because I got some mucho scholarships from both of them. And I actually chose PLU because they came back with a better deal for me. And they were local. And I knew that PLU had a good reputation. So I didn't feel like, oh, I'm going to go here and not get a good quality education. And I could keep my job. And so I just felt like all of those things put together made PLU the place that I should go.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you found us. I'm glad we made the list. So when you think back to your initial start with PLU, what was it like, just kind of if you think back to like maybe your first couple weeks, your first month, or even just kind of generally your first semester, what was that like? What was, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? What were some of the fears or concerns that you maybe had coming in? I know you have kind of a unique story, Pushpa, so maybe we'll start with you.
Okay, so I am non-traditional all the way. I actually studied away my first semester at PLU, which is not typical. And I went to Norway, actually. I was in Vestfold at the University of Southeast Norway. So I guess my first semester wasn't technically on campus, but it was really challenging. And actually, that's another reason I selected PLU, because I really wanted to study away. So I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to fit that in. As a transfer student, sometimes like the timing doesn't work out, but it was really important to me. So I prepared for it in advance. And the only way I could squeeze it into my plan was to go my first semester. So I was dealing with jet lag and language barriers, and there was only one other PLU student that went with me. So we were expecting more English speaking students. So it was just a major adjustment. Plus I'm 40, so I actually have a son who's probably closer to a typical college age student. So I end up being the mom wherever I'm at. But yeah, it was a really great experience. It was non-traditional. I got back on campus and it took some time to adjust, but it didn't take long.
Great. How about you, Dylan?
Yeah, so like I had mentioned earlier, I had been to 4 different schools and had spent over a year now at 3 of them. And so transferring to PLU, I wasn't super nervous. Like the first couple times I did transfer, I was very nervous, but I've gone through it a few times. I was kind of used to it. I think the biggest culture shock for me though was just the size of the different schools I've gone to versus PLU. For example, at UW, I had a class with over 600 students in the lecture. And so there was just zero chance of ever making a connection with the professor, and there's no chance of that. And then I remember within the first couple weeks in all of my classes at PLU, I think the professor knew my name in all of them. And I'm not a super vocal person, but that's just like answering a question every once in a while and like asking them a question maybe after class or just introducing myself. Like they all knew my name and seemed to genuinely care about you. And that was throughout the first semester. That was something that was just really shocking to me and extremely beneficial in the long run throughout my first year. But that was probably the biggest difference I've noticed.
Awesome. American or Jenna, would either of you like to share?
Sure. So since I'm an international student, I was a part of the international student group, and that was super nice. And they were very, very welcoming, and they just helped us with everything, explaining how the school worked, because it's quite different from the Norwegian school system, and also like where everything is located. And they just helped us with like the dorms and the mailing and everything, and that was just super nice. So yeah, it was a great start.
Yeah. Well, thinking back when you're coming in, was there anything that you feel like you wish you would have known, or wish you maybe would have had gone differently, whether it be through the application process or just getting started on campus?
So I felt like I got a lot of emails with like super good information. So, I kind of got like everything I needed.
Good. Reading your emails, that's always a good tip for anybody.
Yeah.
Read your PLU
Yes,
email account.
yes.
Good. How about you, Jenna?
I actually think as a transfer student, I would have gone to the cave way earlier, because I kind of had a difficulty making any kind of like long-standing friendships at PLU, because it's like, I'm a little bit older. I drive to school, so I don't live on campus. I have a job that is necessary for me to work, so I have to leave, I can't do like clubs really. And so I kind of had a little bit of difficulty for a while making connections, but I found that a lot of students go to the cave, and a lot of them are like transfer students or people that they don't have a dorm, so there's nowhere for them to really go, and so you actually meet some really cool people there. And so that's actually some place that I would recommend that you sort of haunt a little bit if you need a study space but you don't want to like go back to your house or something. Like, go to the cave. I met probably 3 or 4 people that I still kind of keep in contact with after I went there, and I just think I would have gone earlier if I'd known.
Yeah, great. Dylan, Pushpa?
Yeah, as far as something I wish I knew, kind of going off what Jenna said, it's just, I think being on campus is extremely like beneficial for a transfer student, because like I lived off campus, but it was only like a couple minute drive. But it's just like there'd be times where I could study at my apartment, or I could go and study on campus. And some of the friends that I made first semester were people I met at like 10 p.m. at night studying and like doing homework at the computer science lab. And just like being around campus is, you'll become familiar to other people, and other people will become familiar to you, and it's just kind of like showing your face. And then that wasn't actually like, that's one tip, but the biggest tip I'd have is just doing and that I wish I knew, like with all these different schools I've transferred to, is just do more than school. And I mean, if this is your first university you're attending, it can be overwhelming. But I mean, once you get into like the routine of going to university, it's really not overwhelming at all. It's like anyone can handle it. I mean, I'm a computer science major, and a lot of people would consider that pretty difficult, but I mean, like I still find a lot of time to like do other things I want to. And so with just doing more than school, it's like, it doesn't mean like join 1,000 clubs or anything, but I mean, join one club, or try and talk to one new person every day, or try and like connect with a single professor. It's building relationships and just like getting to know people is really, really going to help you as a transfer student.
Yeah, awesome. How about you, Pushpa? Any suggestions or tips?
One of the things I wish I had known is, because I transferred from Pierce, and at Pierce there were a lot more students that were closer to my age. I don't find that there are very many, at least in my program, there are very few people my age.
Mm-hmm.
There's maybe 1, possibly 2 veterans, but so my social life doesn't revolve around school, just because I need to also interact with people that are closer to my age. That being said, though, I have formed some good relationships, like through group projects and things like that at school. But I wish that I had known that my program was mostly going to be younger people. It's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing. And I have to definitely work a little bit harder, I think, to make like social connections at school. That being said, I've formed some good relationships with people. So but you have to work for it.
Great.
Advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Introduce yourself, take the first step. I think sometimes that's just an overall, any college student experience is, I'm not sure if I should put myself out there and introduce myself to someone. And so sometimes really all it takes is you just being the first one to say hi. And who knows how many people and new friendships and circles you can find yourself in. So 10 out of 10 recommend.
Outside of just like developing social relationships, it's like this second semester, like just getting to know people in your class, and it's not for like getting homework answers, but it's like, hey, I'm really struggling with this, can you please help me with that? And it's just it's not even just building friendships necessarily, it's just like having the support in your classes to support each other to get like the best grade possible, which is like what you want to do. It's extremely helpful.
Yeah, good academic network.
Yeah,
Jenna.
And going off of that, regarding maybe going a little bit closer to like professors, I find that like even before your peers, your professors can be somebody who you can actually connect with if you're having a little bit of trouble, because they really do care at PLU, and they're going to do their best to help you like succeed in what you want to succeed in. But again, like you kind of have to advocate for yourself. And like my mom growing up, even in high school, she was like, if you want to do something or you're worried about something, you need to go down the line and ask some questions, because it's not that people are withholding information from you or they're trying to get you. It's just there's a lot of moving parts in your education, and they're also helping other students. And so it's like setting up that extra meeting with your professor, or like I'm really big on gifts. Like, so I work as an organic gardener farmer. Like that's what I have been doing while I was in school. And so when our flowers bloom, like I'll bring flowers to my professor, and it's like those little things that you make little connections with them, and they start to really like care about you and know you, and they want you to succeed, and then they become familiar with your story, and so that just makes it that much easier for them to then help you get where you want to go.
Yeah, great. Well, this is a next question, and before we jump into that, I just want to remind anybody that's joining us, if you have any questions for our panelists, please use that Q&A button at the bottom. Let us know what you're curious about. This is a great chance for you to hear from, how our current transfer students dealt with any of the things that you might be worried about coming in and joining our campus. One of the questions that we had submitted before was, what's it like being in a PLU classroom as a transfer student? You talked a little bit about kind of that building that academic network, but just the PLU classroom experience in general, being on our campus, how has that experience been for you guys? Anything stand out? Anybody who has a response? Jenna.
I'll go. So I think part of that, so there's the social dynamics, which in general, I think PLU is a pretty big promoter of like group relations and open discussion. Although I wouldn't be able to talk about the sciences. I did all my undergraduate science at Pierce, and so I might not know as much about that, but it seems like it's very much like participation is really big, like you contributing to conversations, even if it's just a little bit, group projects. Regarding, I know this might seem a little bit different, like topic, but depending on your major, some of your classrooms are going to be old. They're going to be old and small, and like if you're arts and communications, we have like the oldest building, and so you probably should just be aware of that. Like you're not going to be coming into like a fancy pants kind of thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I heard a couple people who had transferred in go, what? I expected something different. And I'm like, well, it's an older school,
A lot of history.
So, but the like science, like Morkin, like the science center and like all of that, like that's all like brand new and fancy pants. So
yeah, I personally love our campus. I just love the big open space. It's one of my favorite things. I'm from the Midwest, so I'm used to being able to see beyond the next hill. So I really appreciate about that campus. Just nice open green space. Pushpa, I think you had raised your hand a second ago. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I wanted to actually speak to this semester in particular with regard to classroom experience. So we started this semester in the classroom, but I wanted to comment on how great all of my professors were. with the transition to online education, and like the level of care and willingness to accommodate different situations and adapt courses as needed was phenomenal. I felt like all of my professors were extremely supportive. And one of the differences between transferring from a community college is I was on a first name basis with a lot of my professors, and the relationships were more casual. At least in the kinesiology department, I mean, you call your professor or doctor. It's a little more formal, but most professors have an open door policy, and they definitely go above and beyond to help if needed. So other than that, I don't think there's too many differences between being a transfer student versus attending PLU for all 4 years. Like, no one's gonna single you out or know unless you tell them. I mean, it feels just like a regular classroom experience.
I would totally second that. PLU professors, I mean, always, but during coronavirus, just absolutely wonderfully supportive. As long as you go in kind of knowing that they're learning with you, you know, like I just found that, you know, if you had a concern or you needed more support or something wasn't working, like you just gotta like email them or ask, can I have a video chat meeting? And they were like, okay, let's set it up, let's do it. And so definitely if you're someone who like needs more of that support, you'll definitely be able to get that here.
Great. So one of our attendees had asked a little bit about the grading at PLU. For those of you that had attended a community college or even from a different university perspective, how do you feel like the grading might compare? American, why don't you start? Or sorry, go ahead, Dylan.
I'd say as far as like the grading scale, I mean, I know there's information on the websites, or on the PLU website, but as far as like difficulty in grading, I have found that it's relatively easy. I came from UW where everything's graded on a curve, and so you could technically get 90% in a class, but still earn a 3.5 GPA, which is extremely frustrating. But I have not experienced that in any of my classes at PLU. It's all just the percent you get. Like it's in the syllabus. It's usually like a 90% will be like an A-, which translates to probably like a 3.7 GPA, something like that. But as far as like grading and like how professors, how serious they take it, I mean, obviously they take it serious, but if you're like getting the points is very easy. If you're really struggling with a class, like with a homework assignment, for example, it's very easy to just like schedule a meeting with a professor, go to office hours and get one-on-one time to be able to like boost your grade. So it's like, I'd say that, I mean, for all my computer science classes and some of my math classes, the grade really just reflects your effort. Like if you're working as hard as you possibly can in the class and the professor recognizes that, I cannot imagine you ever getting less than a B. So just very fair grades.
Thanks. Anybody else wanted to share? Sorry, go ahead, Jenna.
I'll be patient. Like if anyone else wants to go, like he just said, I agree with Dylan. So I'm a high performing student. So I graduated with Pierce 4.0, and then went into PLU and I finished 3.94. I'm an arts major, so that is, I mean, in essence, that is easier, I would say, definitely than the hard sciences. Like I think that it's a little bit easier to kind of perform on a super, super high level. That said, especially if you're coming from high school, it is going to be a jump. 4 classes, a full load it can be a lot sometimes, especially during finals or like midterms, and you're gonna one of the things is you need to be on top of your assignments and you need to be just trying your best, like Dylan said, to show that you are actually trying and turning your work in. And if you do that, I think you'll be okay. But there is definitely, even just in, I would say, the amount of work, there's often a jump in difficulty. And so you need to be aware that a lot of students coming in, doesn't matter if you're transferring from somewhere or you're coming from high school, the first semester is going to be an adjustment period, and you know, it might be a little bit tougher, but you just have to know that like you're going to get into the groove, and like as long as you're doing what you're doing, like it'll work out okay.
Right. And I think that really goes back to just the accessibility of our faculty too, and being able to network in their classrooms, because we have those small classes, is being able to, as soon as you feel like there might be a struggle, there might be a hiccup, you have somewhere to go, you have resources around you to be able to say, hey, I want to address this and try to, work on this before it gets to be too big of an issue. So that's, I think, a great benefit of being in those smaller classes and having those faculty relationships. Pushpa or American, was there anything that you wanted to add to that? Otherwise, we can move on to the next question.
Sure, I'll go.
Yeah.
I think I worked really hard and got the Provost Scholarship, which helped pay for PLU. And so my degree is in the sciences. So I'm accustomed to having difficult classes plus labs. And I entered PLU as a junior. So classes are obviously, they progress in difficulty. I think that if you work hard, your grades reflect that, which everyone has pretty much been saying. Some professors are more difficult than others, for sure. It just depends on the class. But I think it's definitely feasible to do really well regardless of the field that you're in. And there are a lot of resources if you do need help, like the tutoring center, there's peer tutors, your classmates. And one of the differences that I noticed too is there were a lot more group projects and like big assignments in class as opposed to like smaller homework assignments. That may not be the case for every department, but that was another change. So your grade would be based on maybe 2 or 3 things versus points being divided up between a bunch of smaller assignments. So you have to do really well on them.
Yeah, that's a great point. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Well, let's see here. I think if we don't have any additional questions from our attendees, we'll wrap it up with this last question. Jenna, you had already talked about how you really found a great space in the cave. So I wanted to ask the other 3, is there a space on campus? What's one of your favorite spots on campus to spend some time if you have, those few minutes between classes, or you're coming in to try to get some work done? What's one of your favorite third spaces on campus? American, why don't we start with you?
Well, I just love the library because I'm there all the time and all my friends are as well. And sometimes we sit in like a big group, or other times we sit in small different groups. And then I always get to meet new people, like every single time I'm in the library. So that's just really a great way to connect with other people, because we're all there to study, but of course we need breaks, and then we just go and talk to each other, and it's just super nice. So the library.
Thanks.
I second that. Yep.
Great. Any other spaces other than the library, Pushpa?
I work upstairs in Olson. Olson's another one of those really old buildings, but the second floor gets a lot of natural light, and you can kind of see what's going on, but you can get your work done there too, and that's where all my classes are. So if I'm not in the library or walking around outside, then I'm probably upstairs in Olson.
Awesome. How about you, Dylan?
Yeah, my favorite is probably the computer science lab in Morkin. I think that's the building. It's if you have to, the unfortunate part is you have to have a class in a computer science class that like uses the lab. But if you do, you have access to it like all night, and there's sometimes people in there, and sometimes they're like super friendly and want to have a conversation, or sometimes like you just want to get work done and they like will mind their own business as well. But it's a lot of the computer science students will go in there and just like do work together and like bust out like labs or homework assignments, and it's a good time up there.
Awesome. Great. Well, I want to thank you each again for being part of this. I think we've hopefully addressed any questions that our attendees had. If there is anything that wasn't addressed, we will go through those and make sure to get back to you individually. And this session was recorded as well, so we'll have that posted for you and be able to share that for you to check out later too. But thank you again. Congratulations again, Jenna, on graduating. And I want to wish everybody a great day and upcoming summer, and hopefully we'll see everybody except Jenna on campus in the fall.
I don't know, you might see me.
Bye.
Bye.